Right. Hello. Welcome back. We have another special guest this week, Jeffrey Way, the OG.
OG. Hey, guys.
OG.
Hey,
Thanks for
thanks for
having me.
being here.
Yeah.
I'm glad we can talk about the important issues of the day.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, one of the pillars of the community. Should we talk about Laracast? Should we talk about content business? No, we should talk about Twitter. Let's talk about Twitter.
Twitter is all anyone cares about, of course. And I
Well-
see clearly you guys are like me. Like, I can't bring myself to say X. And it's
no,
not related
no.
to
I'll
Elon or
never say
anything.
it.
It's like, I just can't do it.
I'm
No.
just, no,
It makes
I
no
don't even
sense.
care about
It's
that.
Twitter
Yeah, that's
forever.
so
We're
silly.
going down with the ship. It's Twitter.
Yes.
That's it.
For sure.
We were actually just talking about actually important things, which is ages of kids and how kids reach a certain point where they get actually funny and they really still want to hang out with you before they age out into teenagers. And it sounds like, Jeffrey, you're in a good spot, and we're all in different spots. That's interesting.
I was
Ian,
just going to say that.
Yeah, yours are quite a bit older. Jeff's
How
in the
old are
middle, and
yours,
then
Ian?
mine are super young.
Yeah. So mine are the oldest is 17, looking at colleges and all that, is a senior. And then the middle one is 13. And then the baby is 10.
Okay, so
So-
Ian, when did they start to hate you? That's what I want to, like, what
Right.
year is the cutoff point when they stop liking me?
Well, here there's that we could literally spend an hour on that question because it's so complicated in some ways. Because what's really interesting is as they get older, like their personalities, all three of them have very different personalities, and there's just all these different elements to that. So like the
Mhm.
oldest is a little more like yeah, he's a little more kind of his own person and removed. The middle one's more of like the lovey bear kind of guy. The youngest, she's kind of like the family historian and stuff. So like there's all these different things. So far nobody actually hates us, I'd say, which is good. We haven't
That
had
is
the
good.
full I hate you, you're the worst sort of thing. But it is interesting as they get older, they definitely like are withdrawing in certain ways and finding their own space and things like that. But it is
Yeah,
so
I would
different,
imagine
though,
it's
too,
more
though,
like-
you know.
Yeah, I would imagine it's more like slowly they just spend more and more time in their own room. Which is
Right.
weird. Like, my kids never want to be in their room. It's so weird. Like, my kids have so many toys. I'm like, just go play in your
Yeah.
room. Like, give me 30 minutes just to
Oh
have
man,
some
we
quiet.
can't get anybody to play with toys. Forget that. There's no
Oh,
toys. Yeah.
I know, it's ridiculous. But I would imagine as they get older, they just kind of want to be away from you a little bit more every single year. Maybe not.
Yeah, for sure. To
Ian,
some degree,
I-
yes, but
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
go for it.
I remember years ago you talking about doing something where you guys did the traveling thing, where you traveled all over the
Right.
world. You pulled the kids out of school. Did that ever pan out?
Yeah, so it did. So we started homeschooling in 2018, I'd say. And the oldest
Mhm.
was in like 6th grade, I think, at that time, something like that. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
We spent like 3 months in Europe and traveled all around Europe. Spent a big chunk of time in Paris, which was really cool to spend like 6 weeks, I guess, in just one spot in Europe. Because it's like not just like let's go see all the sites and run through. It's like no, like we went to the grocery store and we did all
Yeah.
these sorts of things like that. Found the little local coffee place we went to every day or whatever. Like just had all those real life experiences in a different location, which was really cool. I mean, there was just things like. I mean, there's just so many things you pick up when you do something like that. One that really stands out is like us being this American family with 5 people, 3 kids. We're in this
For
little
sure.
Parisian apartment, right? And we're going to the grocery store. Like the grocery store is there. They don't have carts. They don't have anything. Like people are like have 3 things in their hand and they go to the checkout, right? I'm like for one day with my big American boys. Like I'm like we had to bring our own car. It's loaded full of stuff. It's like
I know,
this is
like,
like a
we're the
day's worth,
Costco
and,
country,
like,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And they
Like, this
don't
is
have
literally a
big
day's worth.
refrigerators either, so you get it
Yeah,
all
no,
home.
you
And
go
you have
every
nowhere to
day,
put it.
right?
You go every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it
like
is
I'm going
fun.
every day, and I'm like, with piles of stuff, and like everybody else has like some sliced ham, and like that's it. And I'm like,
Some
how do
sliced
people
ham.
live? Yeah. It was crazy. So yeah, so that did work out. And then the second year, we were gonna do a big trip to Joshua Tree and like all around the desert and California and whatever. But then we were leaving the day like that week, like COVID started. And they were canceling
Oh,
the
wow.
flights and everything, and we were like, "Oh man, if we like get to California and then like the flights are canceled, and are we driving across the country and there's this disease going, whatever." We were just like, "I guess whatever, we're not
Oh,
going.
so
So
COVID, and yeah, that would make sense. COVID
impacted that, the second wave of big travel. So yeah, but the first one worked out, and it was great. And the kids were homeschooled for like 3 years. So then we like kept homeschooling in COVID, and then now everybody's back in school, and we're back on the more standard path there. But
what are you thinking, Aaron? Do you homeschool? Are you going to? Have you thought about it?
So our kids are both. We have twins. They're 2.5, and the new ones are not here yet. Yeah. So the new ones truly could be here this week.
Oh,
right?
No
we're
way.
We're on the clock.
Yes, we are on the clock. My wife is 36 weeks pregnant with twins. So yeah.
So it's just
it's
you
not
and me here,
beyond
Jeffrey,
possibility that we end this podcast in the next 30
No,
minutes.
we keep going. We keep
there's
going. He just leaves.
Yeah, I guess that's the answer. There's a non-zero chance that I leave and Ian and you keep talking. Yes, non-zero for sure.
Right.
Fair enough. Wow.
So right now they're in like a 3-day a week, basically just Mother's Day out kind of thing. We will probably put them in public schools all the way through high school is our goal. And so we just moved. We actually just bought a house in a district that has really good public schools through like all the way through high school. And our goal is for them to be like in the schools, in the neighborhood, in the community, just trying to be a part of the neighborhood that we live in. So that's our goal.
Cool.
I would love to personally homeschool, but I think I would do it. And I don't think Jennifer has very much interest in doing it. And so we're not going to do it.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah,
I can go both ways on that one.
Yeah, we weren't super on the homeschool. Like our main thing was kind of about the traveling, really, which was then it was kind of a bummer the back half because like there was COVID and all that stuff. Because like it's like, well, we have this business, we could do, I could do it from anywhere. We've never left the town we grew up in. Like we're here. Like let's just take a few years and go do something different and live somewhere different. Without the full like we're actually fully moving to Europe or Australia or something. It's like no, we can just like go. Take 3 months or 4 months or whatever it was and go do that. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting middle ground.
Jennifer and I did that before we had kids. We spent 3 months in Paris.
Smart play.
Wow,
yeah,
3 months.
We lived
I didn't
3
even know
months.
That.
We split it between 2 Airbnbs. So we did like the first half in one, neighborhood and the second half in a different neighborhood. So we could experience 2 things. And it was amazing. It was totally unlike anything else, any other travel I've ever done. Because we started to like know where the grocery store was and have our quote unquote friends, which were just the people that served us coffee at the coffee shop. And we'd be like, hey, hi, we know you. And it was just so fun. So yeah, I mean, if you can pull it off, 3 months feels about right. It's long enough to feel like you're there, but it's short enough that you can come home and your friends are like, oh yeah, you weren't gone that long. You're like, well, it was 3 months. Yeah.
Have you guys done any big traveling, Jeffrey?
My wife and I did a big trip to Europe for about, it wasn't 3 months. I wish we had done 3 months. It was like a month and a half, something like that, where we did the whole thing where it's like we went into the UK and then we took the train and we traveled down to Rome and we spent a week and a half there. And it's like we just kind of did that little circle that a lot of people do in that area. And yeah, it's like it's one of the best memories I have. Like everyone in there, especially as young as possible in your early 20s, you should do it for sure. It's expensive.
Was that before kids or?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
It opens your eyes to think like growing up in the U.S. You just have your idea of how things are. Like I'll give you an example. When I worked at this company called Envato, we had a company meetup in Malaysia, and I grew up in Tennessee, so I had my ideas of like what Malaysia is, and then you get there, and it wasn't that at all. Like the nicest mall I've ever been into in my life was in Malaysia.
No way.
You just don't. Yeah, you just don't think this at all.
Right.
We were like,
you're exposed to.
It's horrible to say, but we were thinking like, is it okay? Is it safe for us to go? Like, what are the safe areas? None of that applied whatsoever. It was a wonderful experience, and those are things you can't imagine until you go there. Otherwise, it's just whatever you were brought up to believe is what you think, and you have to go there to see for yourself what it's actually like. So we were very ignorant before doing that, I think.
The ultimate hack, you said it's not cheap. It's not cheap, but it's way cheaper if you book an Airbnb for like 6 weeks. It's like,
right. That's what we did.
They mark it down by like 60% or something.
Yeah.
And so if you go, and then you're shopping at the grocery store, so you're not eating out every meal. And so if you want to like go to a spot, do it for, as long as you can. And that's a hack to get it a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go too, because otherwise, like sometimes when you go to places for a few days, like you're just going to different cities, and the cities somewhat all are the same, but it's like you have to spend a long time there to really see what the city is about. Otherwise, it's like, oh, another city with a bunch of buildings, and a bunch of streets that I don't know, where I'm going to miss all of the cool things I should actually do because I'm only here for 3 days for a conference,
Yeah, and you're just in the tourist zone. You don't get a chance to get out to the real parts of the city and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was one of the things in Europe. One of the biggest things that hit me, kind of along the lines of your story, Jeffrey, was like we were so after we left Paris, so we're with the 3 kids, and we didn't even think we packed that much for 3 months. We're like, everybody had a rolly bag and a backpack. Like that's what we had for 3 months in Europe, right? And we were on the train to Italy because that was like the second country we went to after France. And then we were on this little train to the little town we were going to, like this, local type train. And we just had our stuff packed in there, and we looked insane. Like nobody else on the train had anything. Meanwhile, I had this giant, 5 rolly bags, like
Griswold family,
up.
basically.
And I was like, we are ridiculous. This whole thing is insane. And just like, we went to Europe like a year ago, and we just had a backpack each. That's it. Well, like no rolly bags, no nothing. We pack what we have in our backpack. That's it. We'll do laundry, whatever. Like, but we'll make it work. And we were only there for like 3 weeks that time. But still, it's like, no, this being a crazy American with 10 pieces of luggage, no way. Can't do it. Not
Absolutely.
Doing it.
Oh, like we had a similar story. We were in Italy, and we just didn't know. We thought on Sunday, like, oh, let's just get on a train in Italy and go to one of the small towns. And I'm like, I can't not remember what the town name was. I hate that I can't remember it. But anyways, we get there on Sunday, and it just didn't occur to us that in some of these small towns, like Sunday, everything shuts down. It's not like businesses are open on Sunday. The entire thing is shut down. So we get there on a Sunday, and we're walking around because, of course, we don't have a car. We're just walking. I have like the most American hat on, of course. And people are looking at us, but there's nothing for us to do because every single business, every restaurant, every store is shut down because it's Sunday morning, obviously. And so we were just kind of stuck there for like 6 hours until the train came back and we could go back to the city. It's just things you don't think about. Yeah. But what's weird? It was a fun trip because it's one of our
of course.
The funniest memories is us walking around this deserted town trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's the serendipity of those things. It's like you had all this, I'm sure, interesting experiences and great food and whatever, but that's the story you told, right? It's like this one where you're just wandering around randomly on a Sunday.
Yeah, for sure.
Shall we do it?
All right, so let's jump into the actual topic.
All right. I'll set the scene here. And then I'll let Jeffrey. Oh, he is stacking his notes.
Guys, he's got notes
this morning.
He's got a notebook. Okay.
Oh boy.
All right.
We're in trouble.
So here's the inciting incident, and then I will allow Jeffrey to make his points, and I will rebut. And Ian, you can interject and moderate.
Sure.
It would be great, Ian, if you took my side, just as like a friendly little reminder. All right.
Hold on, my instinct is Ian might take my side on this one. I'm very curious to see how this turns out.
I'm going to hold it close to the vest right now.
Ian, remember who's going to be here next episode. So remember which relationship you want to be forging here. Actually, Ian, next episode.
Ian, you're Gen X, right? Okay, you're Gen X, right?
Yes, Gen X.
Okay, well, Aaron, okay, let's see how this goes.
All right, tough road to hoe. Here we go. Jeffrey_Way on Twitter says, what's the most generous explanation for why most of us at some point retweet compliments? You would, emphasis, never do this in real life. So the question being posed by Jeffrey is, why do we retweet nice things about ourselves when that would be insane behavior to do in person? Jeffrey, the floor is yours.
Okay. All right.
I love that he has notes. This is
I feel like I'm at the
spiral notebook.
don't take this too serious. I had coffee this morning. I was like, oh, I should probably think for 5 seconds before I go to this podcast. But I do feel like I'm at the Oxford Union. Thank you, everyone, for having me. No, look, I don't care that much about this. This is just some dumb tweet. And actually, I would love it if you guys would convince me I'm wrong on this one, because maybe I'm super overthinking this. But I think there's a little bit of grossness that you feel when you see these things. And okay, is there? Okay,
don't be shy.
Question.
This is not the show to be shy on. Don't be shy.
Lay it out.
Is there etiquette when it comes to Twitter as to what is acceptable behavior and what is not? Okay, for example, we have to distinguish between retweeting a personal compliment. We talked about this, Aaron, and retweeting a business compliment. So if I said like, "Oh, Aaron, I saw you got a haircut. You look really good," and you hit retweet, is that gross at all? All right, that's my first question. Is that kind of gross?
Okay.
Ian,
are we doing question response, or are you going to lay out the questions and then you want to do question response?
I don't know. This is your show. I haven't planned anything.
I like this. Let's go with
Jeffrey's. All right. Let's start there. Is it gross to retweet a personal compliment like that? Ian, what do you think?
So I do totally agree, at least with this premise of that there is a distinction of some sort between a personal compliment and, hey, I love this open source thing you're doing. Hey, I love your product. Like, I do think that there's something there that's a distinction, and whether or not it's important or not, I don't know. There is a distinction though, right? Like, so I think it's, is it gross or not? Man, I'm going to go a little bit towards, I know, go a little bit towards Jeffrey, I guess, on this one. Like, I don't think I guess I'm sort of in the middle of you guys, honestly, a little bit, but I don't know if I would do you have a nice haircut. Am I going to retweet that? I'm sure I have, right? Let's just start there. I'm sure I have because on Twitter,
yes,
it's like the thing, like I'm just going to hit the retweet button, right?
Nobody check our prior history. Right. Just take a word of mouth.
But you should is a different thing. Like, yes, should I?
Right,
do
and
that?
that's why
should
my
I
tweets
retweet that?
For sure, and that's why my tweet specifically said, "Why do we do this?" Because I was thinking like I've done all of these things that when I see it sometimes from other people annoy me a little bit, and then there's just the reality like. The way we receive things, that phrase, the way you receive things says more about you than it does about the person, right? So the things that maybe irk you about what a person posted, it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with your own crap, right? So I try to keep that in perspective. But it doesn't change. So,
wait,
go ahead. You go.
Let's get
Ian says there's a distinction, but maybe not a difference between personal and business. Maybe a small difference. I think I draw a distinction with a difference between retweeting hey, your course was good, your video was good, and hey, you're looking handsome today. I think those are very different things, and one feels I don't want to show my cards too early. One feels like it serves a purpose, and one feels like vanity. So yes, first question, I think there's a difference, and it does feel weird for me personally to retweet almost like a personal or vanity compliment.
Well, do you think too there is this element though, right? Think about humans in general. Forget Twitter.
Humans.
I feel like Twitter unleashes this thing people have always wanted. Like when how many times have you want somebody's compliment in front of somebody else? Like you're in school and you want the validation of someone's compliment in front of the girl you like, in front of your friends for whatever, right? Or whatever your scenario is there. Like you wish that compliment had happened in front of a certain person or people, agreed. Right? And then Twitter lets you unleash that. Whether that should be unleashed is an interesting question, but it lets you be like, oh, I got this compliment over here 2 days ago. Now I can just show it to the girl who likes me and the peer group I want to know about my coolness in whatever way that is, right?
But maybe that's why we're all
hard to not take the Twitter up on that, right?
Maybe that's why we're all slowly going crazy, though. Right. You know what I mean? Like, don't you ever wonder, like, are we all just slowly being morphed by social media? You know how they say everything goes back to the invention of the like button? Like, they can trace everything going on today to Facebook adding the like button. And then suddenly that tweaks the way you create a post. Because now you're not just saying, like, when I first joined Facebook in 2004, it was, what are you doing? And I was thinking about this the other day. I think originally it had your name in the beginning, and then you would fill in the blank. because I have a lot of posts from 2004 that start with the word is. Like, is currently figuring out blah, 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 is doing this. And all I can imagine is they had your username at the beginning in bold.
And it was status only. There was no wall. So you would there was no like notification feed, I guess. There was a wall, but there was no feed. So you were just like,
the wall was added
Aaron Francis
later.
is at the soccer game. And if someone came to your profile to look, they would see that.
Right. So when I'm not on Facebook anymore, but when I was, they would do that thing where it's like, here's what you wrote 10 years ago. And they always started with the word is. And they were so cringy. I never wanted to see them. You know,
same.
I was like, oh God, I was actually writing that stuff. But the original version of Facebook was just, what are you up to? You know?
Yep.
But Twitter feels like a different thing. Twitter feels like it's not, well, I don't know. I remember explaining Twitter to my family and coworkers right when it came out. And I remember saying, oh, it's like the digital water cooler, right? And this is what everyone said. It's like, oh, especially if you work remotely, it's the water cooler. But then it got to a point where it's like, oh, no, Twitter is kind of both things. It's the water cooler, but it's also like the PR branch for your personal brand, right? And that's what I think that's where it gets tricky. It's like, is Twitter for you, Aaron, or me? Is it just for you to talk about what you're working on? Or is it a vessel for you to sell me products? And the answer is probably both, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, it is for me.
Is that the next question? Because I'm ready.
I don't know. Like, this is junk. Like, whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah, go with it, Aaron. Go with it.
I don't have one, two, three on here.
I think that is the hard part, right? So that was kind of my point of view. Like, we retweet things, we retweet compliments, or I'll speak for myself. I retweet nice things when they are related to some other outcome I'm trying to get, besides just like people knowing that I'm good and nice and smart, right? So if I'm trying to sell a course, or I'm trying to get people to go watch a Planet Scale video or something, there's some amount of like, I can say that I've just released the thing and then never talk about it again, and that's just not going to work, unfortunately. So I think my options are, I can say over and over and over that I have a thing, or the thing is good, or please remember that I did the thing. And that's like, that feels almost worse to me, honestly. Or, you know, when somebody's like, hey, I just watched this Planet Scale video and it was really good, I learned whatever, I can just retweet that, and other people, that brings back to mind in like my followers' minds, oh yeah, Aaron did this thing, and this other person, this third party is saying it's really good. Maybe it is good. Maybe I'll go watch it. And so that's where I think it's like, yes, I'm definitely trying to use that as social proof and promote stuff, but I also personally like to hang out on Twitter and like joke around with friends. And so there's this weird mix of business and personal, which is why I draw a distinction between business and personal retweets, honestly.
Yeah, it's interesting. But it's still the same account. That's the weird thing.
It is still the same account, yes. And it is definitely the PR for the personal brand line. Yeah, that is 100% true.
Yeah, because if it was a business account and it retweeted compliments, I wouldn't think anything of it. And I do it from the Laracast account all the time. And I guarantee I do it from my personal account too. But I don't know, there's a level of shame involved when I do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, so what is the shame? What is the shame for you that's involved? If somebody, so let me give you an example. Let's see. I just watched the Laravel 10 from scratch series by @Jeffrey Way, and I'm fully up to speed. What a great course. Like, and
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. You retweet that and feel shame. Where's that, like, what are you feeling?
Okay, I like that. I'm sitting on the couch here. Let me think about
I lay down at mine. You get to sit at yours? That's awesome. Yeah.
Do people actually lay down in therapy? I always wonder that.
I've never laid down.
I don't think so. I've never laid down.
Is that a movie thing? Like they lay down?
I think it is.
Yeah. It's not a shame. It's just, okay. Oh, I got it.
Tell me.
I got it. It's manipulative, I think.
Okay,
so here's my thought.
Enters the fray.
You know what Twitter should have? I feel like Twitter should have a section for, because it is true. It's like, it's partially your personal account, but it's also your personal brand. And you see this on Instagram, especially. Everyone has a personal brand. People aren't just posting photos anymore. It's like, no, this is my brand and this is all I post on. Okay. If there was a way to just say, this is a testimonial that I would like included as part of my account, that would be cool. Just like they added highlights, maybe there's like a testimonial section. But when it's a retweet where you're like, oh, this warms my heart that this person got so much from my course, it's like, it doesn't warm your heart. You're just retweeting it so that you can make more money. You know what I mean? That's where I feel like it's manipulative. And I'm not going after you, Aaron, because I do this
no,
more than you.
I don't feel gone after.
But I do it more than you. So just to be crystal clear, this is me analyzing myself here. But it feels manipulative because you're representing flattery or modesty, like, oh, thank you so much. But in reality, it's like, I'd like more people to buy this product, and this is a good way to do it, is to act like I'm just so humbled by how my course affected this person, when it's really not that. You just want more people to buy your stuff. You know what I mean? Okay, so am I the crazy one?
No.
I'm crazy
I just
here.
love
All
a
right,
stance.
Ian.
No. We love a stance. Ian.
Well, I wonder though. See, there is this whole other side of this, which is like, what does the audience want? And so when I'm following Jeffrey Way and Lara Cass and Aaron Francis, right? Like, those compliments that you retweet of like a course or whatever, right? Like, I actually find them super useful because it's like, I mean, Lara Cass produced so much stuff. I can't possibly keep up on all of the that you do, right? And like, even Aaron's freaking always producing so much. So like, when something gets put back in front of me, right? I think that's useful because it's like, oh yeah, Jeffrey did that course on whatever, and I gotta make time to like hop over to Lara Cass and like and look at it. And now obviously you could do the same thing by having like structured just tweets about each course that go out over time and whatever, right? You could do it that way too. But I'd rather see what somebody thought about it, because sometimes there's even little interesting nuggets in the bit of text that's in the retweet, right? Like, so like, you have an extreme example, like, your hair looks nice today. Yes, that's like useless for me to know that somebody said your hair looks nice today, right? But everything slightly above that and beyond actually often is either entertaining or actually useful. And so I think there is like, the audience, people aren't mass unfollowing you when you do these things, right? Now, I guess there is the idea of like, is that manipulation, and that ties them to you in a manipulative way? And like, maybe I've been manipulated to look forward to your retweets about your courses, and I've been Pavlov dog trained somehow by this, and like, that's bad that I am. But I don't know. And it is interesting to like know somebody who is a brand of themselves. Like, it's more interesting to follow Jeffrey Way and what's going on a little bit personally, plus the business, as opposed to just like Hertz or Vercel, let's say, or whatever,
or an RSS feed from Laracasts or something.
Right.
Yeah,
something generic.
Yes.
So
yes, that's true.
Yeah,
because Twitter is such a weird amalgamation of these things, of entertainment and information. Right? Nothing's like Twitter, which is why it's sort of irreplaceable in that way, because it is a combination of everything all at once.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss has turned into pure brand and no personality. And if you go look at his Twitter account, he's got like 2 million followers or something. And it's basically just an RSS feed, and each post gets like 3,000 views or something like that. And it's just because it's like, I don't want to follow an RSS feed. That's just not interesting to me. So I think there is something, like you said, Ian, to be said for like, I actually do want to follow the personality brand, knowing that it's like some amalgamation of personal and business.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there's a good argument that we're numb to it. Things that maybe, like I said, you would never, whatever the real life version of a retweet is, you would never do that in real life. But it's like, yeah, maybe we're sort of numb to that though, where we don't perceive it in the same way. It's funny. I'm always thinking like, how would my grandfather think about like if somebody complimented me and I shared it with all my friends? I feel like my grandfather would be like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" But it's like, yeah, it is true. It's like social media in the same way that Instagram is its own culture, and things are like posting selfies on Instagram is far more acceptable than it is on Twitter. Twitter, it's like you can sometimes do it. But if I was posting a picture of myself multiple times a day, people would start unfollowing because it's kind of against the culture. I'll give you an example. There's this guy. He's the CEO of an educational site. I'm not going to out him. I unfollowed him.
Is it Laracast.com?
Yes, I'm talking about myself, of course. No, if I said the name of the company, you would know it. But I quietly unfollowed him because I just couldn't take it anymore. He would do this thing where he would post screenshots of famous quotes, from like Einstein or Abraham Lincoln or whatever. But
those are the worst accounts.
Right, but it got even worse. Next to the quote was a picture of this guy, not the person responsible for the quote, but a picture of himself. And he would do it like 6 times a day. Quote, picture of me, screenshot. And then 2 hours later, famous quote, picture of me. And that's the weird thing about social media is it makes you do things that you wouldn't otherwise do. Like he had it in his head that was probably like a way to, I don't know, make it look like you're talking to each other in the same way that we're talking to each other right now. There's nothing vain about us showing our faces because it just makes for a better experience. But there was just something about that where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. But again, it comes back to what I wrote here. The way we receive things says more about us than them. So maybe that's my own idiosyncrasies or neuroses or something like that.
So that's just an example of someone playing the game really poorly, in my opinion. I don't think that's an indictment on the medium in any way. I think that's an indictment on a lazy player. So I think that's somebody that was like either got coaching or saw, hired a firm or saw other people doing it and thought, here's a hack where I can have infinite content because I'm supposed to be posting, right? Everybody's supposed to be posting. And I can schedule these 6 months out and never have to worry about the platform. And it's like, that's never going to look good in my opinion, because you're going to end up looking kind of like a doofus, which is what that is. And like the three of us here, I don't think would ever drift into vapid thought leadership content, quotes, that sort of thing. And I think that's a fundamentally different, problem, is that he's just a bad player of the game.
Yes. Okay. So what is wrong? Like, why do we respond to thought leader style tweets negatively? Like, what is wrong with it? I agree with you, but what's wrong with it then?
I don't know what's wrong with it. I know why I respond negatively to it. I think there's a mismatch between like the medium and the perceived, like the voice that you're using to communicate. So for example, if you're hanging out at a friend's house and you're like playing a board game and having drinks and somebody starts like going all megachurch preacher, and you're all sitting at the, like, with tone of voice and cadence and volume and that sort of thing. And you're sitting at the table with 6 friends having a drink and playing Settlers, and somebody takes on that tone of voice. You're like, this is weird. Like, what are you doing? It's just us hanging out. And I feel like that's what happens when people go into real thought, like real, like aphorism, like tweet a pithy quote. That's what happens on Twitter when people go into thought leadership mode, is like, we're all just kind of hanging out and you're over here just like spouting off little quotes and preaching. Like, bro, that feels weird. And so that's what I think. I think it's a format that doesn't match the communication means. Or like
what they're trying to, right? It's interesting though that it works, right? Like not with us OG Twitter users. It doesn't work with us. We're like, ooh, that's gross. But we could all list a whole bunch of accounts that have millions of followers that basically all they do is that, with the occasional sprinkling of whatever the other thing they're trying to sell is, but like it's 90% thought leadership.
Is James Clear? Is that James Clear now?
Quotes. Oh,
does anybody follow him?
I don't know if I follow him.
Atomic Habits?
Ryan Holiday does it with the Stoic stuff.
I love his book.
Ryan Holiday.
Yeah,
that's another one.
His stuff.
I'm trying to think of somebody that's like adjacent to us that does that, like aphorism,
like the Gumroad guy.
Thing.
He's like an abuser of the thought leadership. And what's the other guy?
But it seems like the biggest abusers are people that you've never really heard of, yet somehow every post they make gets like crazy retweets and likes. So it's like clearly they figured out the algorithm, and yet at the same time my response to that is almost like repulsion. Like I feel like it's it's like farming or like fishing or whatever the term is for that.
That's why it's so dangerous to do, in my opinion. And that's why also like being a thread boy was dangerous. And that's why also I think being a meme lord on Twitter was dangerous, because you get this short-term hit of like the algorithm shows you to a bunch of people, but you also like you kind of alienate the people that you want to be in the room with, right? And so you end up getting all these followers that are like, haha, the memes, what funny memes, and then a bunch of other people mute you because you're always making memes about Rust or whatever, right? And so I think it is like, yeah, we see people having success with it, but at what cost? Like, yeah, maybe they've got a ton of followers, but have all of the serious people muted them because they're like, God, this guy is just memeing all day, every day.
And I guess that's maybe where I draw it back to when you said, why do you feel shame about like retweeting your own stuff, which I do constantly. It's that same idea. It's like, oh, I thought we were all hanging out here. And then all of a sudden, no, I'm actually using you as a sales funnel. And we thought we were just hanging out, but we're really not. I'm selling to you. At the end of the day, you know, it's like you read an article and it's like, oh, fill out your email for this free PDF. And you do it. And it's like, it's not about the free PDF. It's so that 6 months from now, they're going to sell you their Black Friday thing, you know? Mm-hmm. So I feel like whenever you get into that misleading territory, it's almost always a bad way to go. Like if your metric was what is most generous and friendly to whoever you're trying to sell to, that's the way to go. So if you're trying to mislead them, I feel the same way about things like sign up now because in 2 days the price doubles. So this is your last chance before the price goes. Like everything feels a little manipulative. Like you're trying to sell to the people instead of be friends with them. You know what I mean?
So yeah. So here's a question. You keep mentioning manipulative or misleading, and I think one interesting thing you said earlier about the retweeting is like kind of like, oh, I'm so humbled. This false humility of, oh, this person really loved my thing, and I'm humbled by that. I kind of have maybe a hot take or an opinion on that a lot of people say humbled when they really just they're lying, and I think I agree with you there. And so whenever like it's happened many times where people have reached out to me privately or publicly and told me about the MySQL for Developers course and how like important it was to them because they never understood databases. And I do not frankly feel humbled by that. What I do feel is honored. And so I will always tell them like, I'm honored that you think that, because it is like, I don't feel less, I feel more. Like I feel like elevated to a place of, honor. And so I think there's this thing that maybe you're ascribing, and maybe certain people do this, but you're ascribing generally, which is like everyone is pretending to be humbled and moved and like, low am I, when really they want to sell to you. And I think there's a second way where it's like, hey, that really meant something that you said that. I'm honored that you think that, and I want to share that with my audience, not under any false pretenses, but to share that as like the testimonial to my audience. And I think like trying to say I'm humbled and this means something to me personally maybe does feel a little bit weird versus
but why does it have to be shared? Why does it have to be shared with your own audience? Why can't you just accept the compliment? You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, there is motivation. It is like, well, if I retweet it, just by definition, more eyes will see the link to my course, to Laracast.com. Yep. And all of this is like increasing the likelihood. The likelihood that you will see the name of my business and sign up goes up every single time I retweet a compliment or something like that. And maybe like I was talking to a guy I met, he's the CEO of Code School, and we met up for coffee a couple of years ago. And we were talking about running sales, very similar to your conversation with Caleb about a week or two ago. And I was talking about like doing the Black Friday ads, and that makes me feel a little bit gross. Again, Caleb and I had a super similar conversation on Telegram about a year ago about this exact thing. So it's very funny. And he was telling me he will send out like the Black Friday announcement ad, But then the one at the very end that says, hey, we're going to close up shop in 2 hours and the sale's gone. He said, that's the email that makes everyone sign up. Yep. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And still, like, I feel gross every time I send it, just like Caleb. And he responded like treating me like I was kind of like, okay, like, who cares? Like, you're running a business here. Whether you feel bad or not is irrelevant. So whether did it increase sales or did it not? And I thought, oh, maybe I am overthinking this a little too. It doesn't matter. It's like you're running a business. You know, Target's not thinking about like what are the ethics around promoting Target. Like, they don't care. You know, it's irrelevant. You know, it's just a numbers game. Do the numbers go up when you do this thing, or do they go down? And then everything else is maybe irrelevant. But then again, it's like it's very different when it comes to your personal brand. It's like it's not your business. It's not HelpSpot. It's Ian Landsman, the product, or Aaron, the product, and we're all trying to figure out like how do you manage that, because it's a brand new thing. You know, it's very strange.
I think also people who come from the development background, I think a lot, they don't have like that natural self-promotion instinct quite as much in general. I think some of them do, and everybody who does, it usually pays off, right? If you can put that fear aside and be like, no, I'm going to be okay with like feeling uncomfortable sometimes because what I've done is valuable and useful, and I'm going to be okay talking about it in that way, right? But that's still not something natural that maybe a more natural somebody who came up in marketing might feel more naturally or whatever. But if you think about all the great promoters of our time, Steve Jobs, right, or whoever, like, they're not worried about the self-conscious part as much as getting their story out and what they've done and what the products do. And yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of kind of something that you have to overcome to some degree. And it's just then finding different people find their different levels with it of how far they're willing to push it. Because I'm sure both you guys, right, especially, I feel like with the B2B app, it's a little different. I feel like the self-promotion has never worked quite as strongly as like a content thing does. Or maybe I've just done it poorly, and I definitely haven't been all in on it at certain points. But yeah, if you have that like tie to yourself and how that feeds into the individuals buying your services, and what they feel about you impacts if they buy or not, what they feel about the product, and how you can let them get that information to them about the product impacts that. And so yeah, I mean, I think there is, at the end of the day, right, like, you're not helping anybody if Laracast goes out of business. Like, then you help nobody, right? So there is this element, there's some level of like where you have to promote it so that people buy it, so that you can keep making more of it, so that you can keep helping people and have that virtuous cycle go, that you have to be okay with it. And then, but there is like this line, of course, of like, yeah, and obviously the original conversation being Twitter and personal versus business and all those things. But I think on the business side of it anyway, I think the upsides are bigger than the downsides, right? Like, that's how you give back to the community. Like, Jay-Z has a line about this where like he got rich and gave back. Like, that's how he did it, right? So like, that's kind of the thing, is like, you can't give back if Laracast is out of business and you're working at some job somewhere, right? So like, there is this cycle of promotion that's required to do the awesome things for the community. And obviously same with Aaron and the things you're doing. So
I think it's different for this CEO of, I forget, Code School or whatever. The business, at some level, the business becomes an entity on its own. And so like Target is an entity unto itself, and they'll send millions of Black Friday emails to me specifically, not in general, just to me, to my inbox. They will send me 1 million Black Friday emails, and that's fine for them because they have, you know, fiduciary duties to shareholders. And I think it gets really, the difference then is Laracast is an entity, but it's also you, right? It's Jeffrey Way. And so then there's a big difference between like, what are Jeffrey Way's, what's Jeffrey's brand, and how many emails can Jeffrey's brand sustain, or how many emails does Jeffrey want to send? And I think that's the big difference between like Code School or Target and Laracast and, you know, the Aaron Francis galaxy of whatever.
In my mind, everyone has like a budget. That's how I think of it on social media. They have a budget for what they're willing to take from you, right? So it's like, oh, I'm following this person, but if they go too far into this territory, they use up their budget, and I just can't do it anymore. You know, and it could be anything, right? It could be like political views, like, oh, they've gone too much. I can't do this anymore. It could be promoting their sports. It could be, oh, I'm really interested in your programming content, but you keep talking about movies or something like that. So now I'm not like, this is all the stuff that we have to think about. And I think the same thing is true for marketing. And every time I tweet about Laracast, it is marketing. And I feel like I'm using up that budget for people so that if I do it too much, they're going to unfollow me, because I would unfollow me. Like, you don't want to feel like you're being sold to. Well, that's the big problem. Nobody wants to feel like they're sold to.
That's the right equation. Yeah, I think that's perfect.
See, I actually don't agree with that. Honestly, like, I think there are people who, how many times have people looked through, like in the old days, you looked through a newspaper or whatever, right? Or you looked through the computer catalog when we were kids. That's just, I have
no idea what either of those things are, Ian. Like, what is a computer catalog?
A catalog where you buy the parts of a computer out of. You never looked at one of those old catalogs, and like, that's all advertising, right? But you enjoyed looking through it. Or a fashion magazine, and you're looking through it to, like, you're literally there for the ads, right? You're there to see what Louis Vuitton has put out, right? Like, you want to be marketed to. So I think that that's people do want to be marketed to.
But that's
everybody all the time. But
hold on, that's where it comes back to the idea of, like, is this the water cooler, or are we all numb to the fact that we're friends, but we're really kind of trying to sell our junk to each other, right? Like, and maybe we're all numb, and we just accept, like, it doesn't affect me. This in the same way, like I said with Instagram, when I see a selfie, I don't think, oh, you're being vapid. I just think, oh, that's the culture. That's how it works. Everyone does it, and I like that. You know, there's a funny thing that, Aaron, you have definitely, I guarantee, have learned with YouTube. Everyone learns it. If your face is in the thumbnail, the likelihood people click on the thumbnail on YouTube goes up, like, significantly. Like, so at that point, it's like, it's not like, oh, am I being narcissistic or anything like that? It's like, no, people will click on this video if your face is on it. Period. And you don't need to overthink it. And so now everyone is numb to the fact that we're all putting our faces on every single thumbnail we create, because that's just it's the way it works, and nobody's offended by it, you know?
And this is a great example of what is okay on the platform, what does the platform require, and what is Aaron comfortable with, because I refuse to do the pretend shocked face where my mouth is open and I'm like, I can't believe that, this thing that didn't happen happened. Like, personally, I refuse to do that. And so I'm willing to say, like, I know that the click-through rate will be higher if I put my face on it. How can I do that in a way that aligns with who I am as a person? And instead of, like, writing off wholesale, I'm not going to do this because the platform wants it. No, I'm going to do that, but I do have boundaries, and I'm not going to lie in a thumbnail. And so I feel like that's a nice corollary that you could bring back to Twitter as well.
Yeah, it's funny how things change. Go ahead, Ian.
I was just going to say, this as we've been talking about this, I'm wondering if the premise of the original question is not even correct. The idea that you would never do this in real life.
How dare you.
Like,
first principles.
Because first principles, because I was thinking about it, like, think about, again, I'm going to go old man here, the newspaper.
When you're on your rotary phone and you're going
the
round
newspaper.
The horn.
Yes, exactly. I use a rotary phone. The newspaper, right, was Twitter in the day. If you were mentioned in the newspaper, you would cut that out, or you would buy that newspaper, and you would show people that you scored a goal, you hit a home run, right? How many businesses do you remember going to where, like, there was a review of the restaurant, they cut out the review, it's in a frame, it's out on the front window of that restaurant as, like, here's our validation that someone important in this community thought that our hamburgers were the best, right? So obviously Twitter allows a scale and a reach that's impossible for your local burger joint, but I think the premise is very similar.
I'll have to look up what a newspaper is, but that's a pretty good example.
Well,
Aaron, how old are you?
Okay,
I'm 34.
How old are you, Aaron? Oh, come
34.
on. Dude,
yeah. How old are you? You're like 37, Jeff? 38?
I'm 38. I'll be 39 in a few months. So, I think you're right, Ian. but it goes back to business versus personal. So, for example, what if I invited you over to my house and you came into my house and you saw that I have this wall, and on the wall I took screenshots of every time somebody said something nice about myself, and I put it on my wall. You'd be like,
I think that'd be awesome.
All right, that's a little weird.
I object to the analogy because it's purely personal, and I think we just have to say that Twitter is personal plus business. There's just no way that it's not. There's no way that Twitter is purely personal. You've got 80,000 followers. Like you are a brand on Twitter. Personal is like hanging out in Telegram with 6 people, or in a little Slack with 50 people or whatever. That is personal, and that would be weird if every time someone tweeted something nice, you took it to, Taylor and Adam, and you're like, "Hey guys, check this out." It'd be like, "Bro, that's not the forum for this. Don't do that here." It would just be so weird.
I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe Telegram has become the water cooler. Like nobody's selling each other crap on Telegram. Twitter is different. So maybe the key is just accept Twitter has become its own thing, especially in the programming community. And if you just want water cooler chat, then Telegram is where it's at.
And it may not even be Twitter versus Telegram. It may be a function of where you are on Twitter. Like if you had 400 followers and they were all your friends, it would be more of a hang space. You just don't have that. And so I think you may be viewing it from a lens that other people aren't.
Well, there's also, I think so, because there's the idea of like, we are out there. There is this idea of ascribing what we do to everyone, but the reality is something like 97% of people on Twitter never tweet ever. Like they only read, right? So we are already in this ultra minority of people who put themselves out there for some goal, right? Whether it's just personal gratification, whether it's business, but we are out there in a way that 97% of the other Twitter users are not out there. And so,
correct.
What are they there for, right? They're not there for their businesses. They're not there to maybe some of them would like to be. And that's kind of what we even talk about on the show quite a bit. And Aaron talks about a lot, is like being comfortable with putting yourself out there and the benefits there are to that. But the vast majority are not doing that. They're just there reading. So what are they trying to get out of it? They're following you, whatever. Jeffrey probably has 100,000 followers or whatever you have, right? Like the vast majority of them never tweet anything at you, never tweet to anyone. So
it's like
they're following you.
It's like 100 people.
Right. It's like
I think about this all the time.
Right.
I have 80,000 followers. I think like 79,000 of them are inactive. Because it's like 100
Are they?
people.
Or are they just reading? A lot of them are inactive.
No
For the people who've been on there a long time, a big chunk are definitely dead, right? But like, not necessarily physically dead, but they're dead accounts. But still, you must have at least 20,000 active accounts of the 80. There has to be.
It doesn't feel like that. I'm telling you, like if you told me, hey, you have, could be, maybe you're right. But if you had told me, hey, you have 80,000 followers, what is it like when you tweet? It's nothing like I would expect. Right? It's the same
50 people.
It's the same
replying.
50 people. Yeah. And
maybe
you're right, Ian. Is everyone else is reading and scrolling. Like I'm on Instagram and it's read only for me on Instagram. I don't post anything, but I'm on it every day.
Right. There you go. You're that
maybe
person.
That's how
You're the other side of it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all these stats came out when Elon bought Twitter. All this stuff came out, and it was like, it's something like 90-something% of people like literally never tweet. Now, but 97% of the people who log in, whatever their scale was, once a month or whatever their scale was, it was some scale like that. 90-something% of those people never tweet, even though they log in and are presumably active. Obviously, some of them are bots and whatever, but like, yeah, it's a large percentage of people are just reading.
Well, and I wonder it'd be interesting.
They're there for the ads. They're there for the ads.
Interesting to like scale it up one level. Like, who do we follow that we don't interact with that we really enjoy following? Like one for me is DHH. I don't ever respond to DHH. I don't ever like his tweets. I don't ever retweet him. I'm just there following, and I like to see when he tweets and when he talks about Rails
ear
World
to the ground.
Aaron, are you aware that your co-host is not a big fan of DHH?
Believe you me.
Has there been an episode on this?
There has been one when he wrote the manifesto recently. Ian made fun of him pretty hard. But yeah, it's like
that manifesto was so bad.
Okay.
We could go on that tangent. Like literally every single thing he said about B2B software was wrong in that thing. It was unbelievable. Like he tried to make it all
Jeffrey,
incorrect.
I was trying to blow past it, and you put a pin in it.
Man.
Look, I'll say if nothing else, if we can
I
just
should have picked
completely,
somebody else.
if we can completely redirect, it has been interesting to watch DHH change over the last 10 years. I'll say
It
that.
has.
Like, he is completely morphed. Okay.
Let's pick somebody less controversial. So, like Elon Musk, for example. But there are people, right?
We got to get the DHH take. We got
no.
Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. I gotta hear this.
All right, Jeffrey, hit us with your DHH take.
I don't have it. I'm sorry, Ian. We were kind of bonding, but I kind of like him. I can't help it.
I know.
I can't help it, man.
I've been misrepresented to some degree. It's not even that I hate DHH as a person. I just think DHH gives tons of horrible advice. That is terrible advice for so many people. And like his recent stick of like, take all your stuff off the cloud and go buy a bunch of servers. Horrible advice for nearly everyone,
so?
Right? But yes, of course, it's terrible advice.
Yeah, that has been their big thing lately.
If you haven't run a real server and you try to go run a real server, it's not fun. Like we were all very excited to get off of running real servers. I was very excited. Everybody who ever did it is like, great, we're done with real servers. All these huge businesses are getting rid of the real servers. Obviously, they have infinite money. So yes, if you have infinite money and you can hire 5 people to take care of the real servers, great, do that. I'm all for it. It's certainly better. But
this lines up nicely. Okay, so when DHH posts things like that, this is a great example. Is this DHH as a person just talking about what he thinks, or are all of these things marketing funnels for businesses that he's working on? You know, like whenever he does something inflammatory, it's like, are you being inflammatory here, or are you promoting hey.com? Which is it?
DHH is the king of the inflammatory.
So you think he knows what he's doing?
Oh,
he wrote a chapter in his book about it. Yes,
it is.
He is totally all about the.
But here's the other thing. He truly believes it. Like I get frustrated with. I get frustrated with like primarily on the JavaScript side, the content creators that manufacture drama out of nowhere just for clicks. Like DHH is actually pulling all their stuff off the cloud. He truly believes it. Whether he then takes a true belief and packages it up well such that it serves as marketing, I think is an interesting question. But there's no denying that it's a true belief. I mean, he truly thinks Rails is the best way to build applications because he's been on that train for 20 years. And like, yeah, he's a little inflammatory. He's a little like, he's good at marketing and he loves to pick a fight for the sake of clicks, but I think it's I think it's a closely held belief.
So what do you think? Like when they famously or notoriously fired, what percentage of their company was it? Or they didn't fire, like was it half of them?
Yeah, they fired one guy and the rest they let leave if they wanted to leave or whatever.
Okay, so what I wonder about that, I find that story so interesting. Did they know that was going to happen? That's what I
Which part?
Like the fact that half the company was going to say, hell no, we're leaving. But like, am I correct that the original version of that story was they were like, hey, in the company group chat, we're not doing any politics. And then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then they said, if you want to leave the company, we'll give you this nice severance pay or whatever. And then half the company left. Did he know that was going to happen? Is what I'm curious about.
I think that was an example of one of the few times where they weren't controlling the narrative, where like it was outside of their control and that they reacted sort of poorly to the narrative being outside of their control. And then they kind of doubled down on some things that maybe they shouldn't have doubled down on. If they were in a situation where they controlled it, I think they would have acted differently. But
I don't know, maybe they knew.
Yeah,
that's what I wonder. I'm so curious.
I think they knew people were going to leave at that point, but the lead up to what happened, I don't think was something they controlled. And I don't think they were like, let's figure out a way to get rid of half the company. I think it was more organic than that.
I think it was more organic than that. And I think they found themselves in a position with their company that they didn't want to be in. And then they changed the rules on the employees and said, we're changing the rules. Sorry about that. If you want to leave, we'll do our best to like give you a bunch of money. So
but they had conversations about this. Like, all right, how many people can we realistically
I think
expect to leave.
I think more
Right.
left. I would guess that more left than they expected. That would be my guess.
Yeah,
That's a big blow at a small company, and there's no way they thought this is going to be half.
Yeah. But I think he would say he was vindicated. Maybe, I don't know. Either way, I think that is such a great case study, just to see how something plays out. Like that was even being covered on
Coinbase.
Like,
Coinbase
MSNBC
did the same
and Fox News.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Coinbase. Yeah, that's why I wonder if he knew, because he had Coinbase as an example.
Yeah,
because they did something similar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
anyway,
but I think that
I follow him
that
on
was
Twitter.
a more complicated scenario though than that, because all that stuff happened after, like, there was a bad employee that people wanted fired because he was doing bad things, and then there was friction there, and then the like when no politics stuff kind of came after that. So I think it's a little more complicated than just Coinbase was different. Coinbase was just like, we're just gonna not have politics at work,
not
and
a
if you don't like it, you can leave.
company.
But that was the impetus, was the CEO's decision to do that.
Yeah.
This was a little bit different, where there was an incident, and then following the incident, it's like, hey, okay, now that didn't go the way we liked it. We're just done with politics at work.
Yeah.
Obviously with Coinbase as an example for them already, but so I think it's a little different scenario, but
yeah, I think
I don't think we should go all the way down that road necessarily. But
what do you mean all the way down that road? We just went all the way down.
We're done. We're coming back. We're circling back.
Here. We got to back up, man. Anyway, I follow him on Twitter, and I don't interact with him, and so maybe people do that to you too, Jeffrey. Whew, that was the point. Glad we got there.
I'm sorry, I ruined that. I'm sorry, guys.
No, that's catnip. That's catnip for Ian. The fans are gonna love it.
I do love watching what Ian becomes obsessed with. Like, I don't know you that well, Ian, but I see on Twitter, like, okay, he is obsessed with this right now. So whatever is currently going on at the moment, I can tell by the frequency of tweets of similar subjects. I can see, all right, this is what he's thinking about.
Well, this is a very interesting thing. Kind of, I think, gets back to what I said before. The difference between like me and you guys a little bit here is that like I could treat Twitter a little differently, because my business is not nearly as tied to Twitter as I think you guys probably are. I don't know if that's true of Jeffrey as much as Aaron, but you know, like I get no business from Twitter. Like nobody's buying anything from Twitter. At least in terms of HelpSpot. In terms of Larajobs, is probably a little bit different, but
Laracon
still
Online a little bit different.
Somewhat a minority. You know, a vast minority compared to like the other avenues people buying the things I sell.
Is that because you focus on B2B heavily?
I think
why aren't you promoting more on Twitter?
Right.
Yeah.
So this is part of it. As I want to do better about promoting more on Twitter and other places, part of like this podcast is like, hey, let me actually promote some of the stuff I'm doing here. And like, there's an ad that runs in the front of this for Larajobs,
this is marketing, Ian.
So I've never really approached Twitter that way.
We all agree.
But I do think it is partially the B2B aspect, because there is this layer of abstraction with B2B. Like, this is why you can charge somebody B2B $10,000 and you can't charge $10,000 for a single user of Laracast, even though it's probably delivering $10,000 of value to that person, or to screencasting.com, right? It's because it's not the person's money. It's also why they feel free sending a bunch of emails, right? It's like, there's not a personal relationship between the marketing woman and
there's a corporate veil.
Customers. There's an indirection there. And so in B2B, like, people don't buy HelpSpot off the cuff. Like, they're evaluating 6 different solutions, and there's a committee, and you know, the CEO has to approve it, and like, it's like this whole thing. Not that we have no customers like that. We do have some smaller customers where it's the owner and they come in and they buy it, and that's fine. But you know, the vast majority are not that, and so it's less tied to that. And I would have to do one other thing that's important about this is I would have to do stuff I don't want to do, which is, if I wanted to be in the like social media of customer support game, that's a whole world that I'm not interested in. I just don't have any interest in participating in it. I don't want to do the thought leadership of how customer service agents should think and act and all those things. And so I've just decided, I like the developer world. My Twitter is going to be more developer sphere, and I'm abandoning that, even though maybe I could become some figurehead leader and make a few more bucks if I did that. It's like, I don't want to do that. So
because you feel shame, Ian? Shame?
No, because I don't have interest in doing it. That's not a shame one, I don't think.
Okay.
Maybe I would feel shame if I was doing it. That's interesting. Like, if I force myself to do it and I don't want to be doing it, then I would feel potentially shameful about that. But I don't want to do it, and so I just choose not to do it in my case.
Ian, if I can further derail this conversation, should I be focusing on B2B more for Laracast?
Oh, I'm sure you should be. I would think.
I mean, I have team accounts.
You have some stuff up there, right? You have some.
But should I be doing more? Like, would that be if I wanted to go to the next level? Is that where I go?
I almost feel like that's where you would have to go for like the next level, because you have such a like saturation in the end developer that you can reach over Twitter sphere. Yes. I would think that's like fresh ground is like, hey, because this is actually a thing I want to do with Larajobs more. We're actually working on trying to do some stuff. There's this whole world of Laravel that's like Disney. Like Disney posts 20 jobs at a time on dice.com or whatever for Laravel jobs, and they don't post on Larajob because there's just some corporate cog in the wheel somewhere that's like hire 20 Laravel devs, and the HR person goes and hires 20. Right. This is who we use. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's a tech job. It goes on dice.com, whatever. Fine. And there's nobody in that loop who can change that. So like, how do I reach into those companies and be like, hey, you know, we have an actual official job board thing that you should check out. And the same, I think, would be true of Laracast. Like, hey, there's 100 Laravel devs somewhere in Disney churning away, right? Those, they're not on Twitter, I don't think. Who knows where they are, what they're doing. But hey, you could sell them a Laracast subscription to Disney, for example. You could charge a lot more money for than individual devs will pay, and you know, get you 100 people using it who are on the team at Disney or whatever. So,
well, yeah, actually, on that note, here's one thing. This shows you how ignorant I am. I'm seeing if anyone at Disney. We do have two people from Disney signed up for Laracast. I do wonder, like, what are the rules around a company signs up for your subscription site? Can you promote them? That's something I have not done. Like on the landing page, such and such company, Microsoft, blah blah blah. They use this product. I don't even know.
Aaron's
what the
like
rules
a no. I'm a yes. I'm a hard yes on that.
I'm a hard head shake no.
What is that? Conscientious objector, or that's
that? That is. And I say this as a ruthless capitalist. That's ethically murky to me.
Not
if you were to pull up Table Plus and look for good domains in your database, and one of them is Disney, and then you throw Disney on the homepage, I feel icky about that.
No.
What if you ask first?
Never think about it.
If you ask first, great. Do it. Make the logo as big as you can. Yeah.
I disagree. Here's why.
Interesting.
First, it should absolutely be in your terms. It's in our terms of service. If you want to use HubSpot,
loophole.
You give the right to use your logo. You have a way out. If you don't want us to use your logo, there is a process. You can just basically just let us know, and we of course won't use it. I mean, I would just do that anyway, but it's official in the terms. Like, you can request us not to do this, and we won't. We've literally had like 2 people ever do that. I think it's totally fair game. Yeah, I think it's fine. And the problem is, you could ask, but they're not even the right people to ask. If you email the person at Disney,
on behalf of Disney,
how are they going to get to the right person? It's like impossible. They're
never
going
to sign terms. They can't sign terms on behalf of Disney.
They can. They have approval to sign terms.
Nah, this sounds like
jargon. They should have run it by their lawyers, maybe, if that's a thing. There's also different levels, right? Like, I'll give a story because it's old. The NFL used HubSpot for quite some time. The NFL read the terms, and the NFL was like, no, you can't use our logo because we're the NFL and we control our brand extremely carefully, right? And so we said fine. Then at one point they wanted to do some custom thing, whatever. But yeah, so I think that's fine. I mean,
that's pretty cool. Totally, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that is very cool. That's a big one.
Yeah,
I like that.
There's big
here's
names.
What you should do.
You have to utilize these big names. Again, if you go out of business, that's bad for the people at Disney who use Laracast, right? Like,
okay, so here's an idea.
The logo is not the question. Okay, go on, Jeffrey.
I have technical competitors of Laracast that have signed up for Laracast. What if I put their names on my homepage?
That would be funny.
As a power move.
I like that. That is a power move.
That I would never do.
I think that's probably not going to... You would feel bad about that, first of all, but also...
Shame. See, it all goes back to shame. What is ethical?
Right, that might be too far.
Here's the real answer about Disney. The logo's not going to... I don't care about the logo. What you need to do is email these at Disney.com Laracast users and ask if you can get in touch with their manager, because you would love to offer them a discount for their 50-person team.
Definitely do that. Because that's the easiest way in. That's one of the problems with the Larajobs angle we're trying to take with us is like, obviously if they've used Lara Jobs, we know their contact, but like we have a lot of these companies that just haven't used it. And it's like, yeah, how do you find the right person inside Disney to like, because they would probably love to post on Lara Jobs. They would be like, yes, this makes sense. I want to hire Laravel developers. This is the main place to do it. I would love to post on there. I don't even either know it exists or I haven't been motivated enough to go through the red tape required. So it's like, how can we help them get to that point? So yeah, if you have like active subscribers at these big companies who you could approach and be like, hey, because it's also good for them. They're paying for it out of their own pocket right now, right? Or through some budget of their own,
or they're running
or whatever.
An expense report that sucks.
Right.
And,
it's like, hey, just like you could escalate this up. Your whole team could be using it. You find it valuable. They're going to find it valuable. You don't have to pay for it anymore if you happen to
land and expand, baby.
You know, it's always hard. It ends up being an issue of just time. It's like, oh, we should probably, like, I don't have time for that anymore. But maybe we could hire somebody for that. But what is the job description for that specific role? And will I have enough work for them to like this is all the junk you end up thinking. And then I end up just going to like OpenAI and saying like, hey, I bet everyone does this at some point. I'm like, hey, I run a business called Laracast.com. Here's what we're currently doing. What are your recommendations for how we can, you know, like I guarantee every small business owner has gone through the OpenAI. Tell me what I'm not doing.
Tell me what to do.
Phase. Tell me what to do because I'm not sure what the next step would be, you know?
Well, that one feels so discreet to me that you could hire a competent VA and give them a discrete task to do.
I don't even know what a VA is.
Outreach.
What's a VA?
I know. Everybody always says the VAs. We're going to try experimenting with some kind of for this Lara Job stuff, but I'm like, I don't even know what it is. What the hell's a VA? What do they do?
So, so VA, for those listening, VA stands for virtual assistant, but it's basically somebody, you know, historically, I think it's been somebody overseas, but it can just be somebody remote that does more of the admin tasks, whether that's bookkeeping, calendar, booking travel, that sort of stuff. So it's just kind of like an executive assistant, but virtual. So at the place where I used to work, it was a property tax company. We hired through a service called Support Shepherd, which is it's like an agency. No, that's not right. It's an agency where it would find VAs in the Philippines and do all the vetting and the early first round interviews and then give you candidates. And we probably hired 20 or 30 people through that agency, and it's like full-time placement. So they ended up working for us full-time. And it was amazing. We hired them for customer support. And so they would like actually answer the phones and talk to our customers. And it was wonderful. They still, you know, most of them still work there. But I think my dream state is to get some stay-at-home parent who used to work some like consulting job, and then, you know, the family had kids and one of the parents was like, I want to stay at home. And it's like, you're one of the smartest people that I know and you're not working right now. Can you just run my life? Like, can you be the project manager of my life? And
that would be cool.
I think that is totally possible. You just have to find the right person who is highly organized and you can trust, which is, of course,
I think that's the hardest part, though. Like, Ian, you run Lara Jobs. Do you have trouble finding good people at HelpSpot?
Yeah, I mean, we end up just doing it internal, and then for HelpSpot, like, so I mean, this is the eternal. When you are a bootstrapper, like we all are, this is the biggest downside. Is every bootstrapper has the same issue, which is they only want to hire people they know and trust already, which is a very small pool of people. And so that's very limiting. Because again, it's very tied to you and it's like, this is a very apt conversation for what we've been talking about. Cause it's like, it's tied to you and who you are, your business is one with you in large extent, very different from like, yes, the manager at Target was like, I'm going to go out and hire 20 people and whatever, let's just churn through them. We'll fire the bad ones. We don't even care, right? If after 2 weeks, this person's bad, I'm going to fire them and literally never think about them ever again.
Yeah.
Whereas like, if we have to fire somebody, we're going to be like, oh, I got to fire somebody. I feel terrible. Like they quit some other job and now I have to fire them. And like, it's a whole thing.
It's
so
horrible.
Delay. Yeah. And this person's going to be with me for months, even though I don't want to, because I don't want to fire them. Like, you know, so that's the part that's not ideal, which is a total negative. It hinders our businesses greatly. But yeah, I fall into that camp for sure. But with your stuff, Jeffrey, I feel like you don't even need somebody for this. You should just go through your database and find the biggest 20 active companies that are like big name companies with probably a lot of developers, and you should personally do it. And then you'll know how to do it and see if it works. And if it does, then it becomes easier to like try to find, you would know what kind of person you need. Like, is it the easiest sale in the world and you can have a VA? Is it hard and need somebody with a little more, who's going to be more expensive and talented? Yeah, I don't know if he'll actually do it at all, right?
I think I'm taking
notes right now.
The limiting reagent is not like...
It's like you have the lead there, though. It's not even like, oh, I got to go out and like cold email this people who I don't even know if I'm emailing the right person and the whole thing. Like, you have a relationship already with the person that you can go in there and contact. Like, that's the gold standard right there. So
yes, it is.
If you can emotionally assent to doing that, you should just do it yourself. If the question is like, does Jeffrey have time to do it? I think you could do the first 10. You could find the time
do the first
to do
10.
It.
Yeah.
If the question is more like, I feel icky or shameful, like I can't sit down to actually write this email, I feel like I hire somebody to do it. But
that's where it comes. That's where it comes back to the idea of like, oh, shut up, like just get out of your head. You don't need to feel icky. Right. This is what every single business does. Stop. Like it's irrelevant to the conversation. Right. And I think that's fair.
You're selling. You're not selling something.
Snake oil. Yeah.
Yeah, or even like a bag and you feel bad or whatever. It's not providing. You're providing tremendous, humongous value to people's careers and jobs, right? Like, you getting more people to use it is super good for them, right? So I think you can feel really good about that, right? And it's just about getting in that mindset where it's not icky to expose people to it. It's good for them and for you to expose them to it.
Going back to VAs real quick, there's another agency that I've heard very good things about that hires military spouses to be VAs.
I've heard about them,
because they are traditionally traveling or moving every couple of years. It's GoSquaredAway.com. I think they're not inexpensive. I think it's like $40 an hour or something, but it's pretty highly vetted, and it's people who are like structurally unemployed, like they can't get a job because they just moved to France for a year stint at a base or something. And so I think you could probably get good people through there, and they will continue to rematch you until you find the person that works for you.
Aaron, do you worry that it will end up doing the opposite, where they're supposed to manage your life, but you find it's like, oh, I need to give them stuff to do? Like, you wake up in the morning and you think, oh, I haven't given them anything to do.
So the only experience I've had with something like a VA is when I was at Resolute, and I had basically like a right-hand person. She wasn't like an assistant. She was kind of more of like a manager, operations manager. And she made my life so much easier by just taking things off of my plate and helping me figure out what she should be doing. And so I think if you can find like a competent assistant, they'll make your life a lot easier. I think if you find somebody who's not quite as competent, then you're stuck in like the task hamster wheel where it's like, I got to give them this thing in such great detail that I might as well just do it myself.
Right. Yeah. That's what I think about. Yeah. So as always, I guess it's just finding the right people.
I've always tended towards hiring full-time people because kind of that. It's like I can get a full-time person, I can spend the time to train them, and then they're here. Like, they are part of the company, and it just feels more like permanent to me. Whereas like, the VAs or part-time, it does feel like a riskier in some ways. But then I've been trying to work myself out of that mindset, because it's like, no, for some things I don't have 40 hours a week of stuff for somebody to do. And it would be great, like even with the side job stuff, like I could have somebody work on that 15 hours a week to like reaching out to like companies that have either used us in the past or that don't know about us. But I don't necessarily need 40 hours a week of somebody doing that. And it's also then easier, like if that doesn't work out, it's like, well, you were only contract hourly anyway, so now we're gonna part ways. Or if they're super good, then they can become full-time, and great. So there's more like flexibility and less sort of commitment there.
Jeffrey, you're telling me there's no stay-at-home parents that like their kids go to school with your kids that you're like, that person is super smart. Their kids are now, 5 and 7, like my kids. And so they're not home all day, every day. They probably want to make some money, maybe 10, 20 hours a week. I know that they used to be a whatever, and now they 100%. Stay at home. Yeah, right? Those people
you see it all the time
everywhere.
Like, I know we're getting into stereotype territory, but it's just kind of true. It's like moms take time off to raise the baby, and then when it's time to go back to work, often they will choose like, I'm gonna stay a mom for a little bit longer. But they still have this time available, and they have this skill set that's through the roof.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I just wonder what I would have them do. Like, give me an example. What would be like the top thing, the first thing you would have them do for you to take something off your plate?
For you or for me?
For you.
For me personally.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a project that Ian and I have talked about where I figure out the top 5 to 7 DSLRs that can be used as webcams. And then I watch 10 to 20 YouTube videos on how to set up each one. And from those YouTube videos, I take only the parts that are relevant for setting up a good webcam setup. Not the I want to be a lifestyle vlogger, not I want to take beautiful pictures. I'm going to sit on my butt all day on Zoom, and I want to use this camera to do it. What are the 4 things that I need to know? I need somebody to just do all of that research.
Yeah.
Figure out what the cameras are, watch all of the videos, distill it down into the parts that matter, and deliver it to me. And then, frankly, go to rent. I forget what the name of it is, but you can rent cameras. Go there and rent the camera and tell me when it's going to show up. I would do that today. In fact, I'm kind of working on that. But
I'm doing that right now.
Yeah. So I think that's something that I would absolutely have them do today. And that's that's kind of a meaty project that I don't super care how long it takes. I just want it to be done and done well. And it's not like I could give that brief to the person, and that took me 38 seconds to tell you what the brief is,
I like it. Would you ever do it, Ian? VA.
Well, I don't know. I think there's also the idea of a VA in the true sense of they are your personal assistant versus just hiring a VA to do other stuff, which we are exploring now, this idea of hiring a VA to do some other stuff. For me, the thing about a VA personally that I would want is I want them to be physically here to some degree, because I want them to take away a lot of the BS that's go run over and pick up that thing that I don't want to do. Go that
charge
return
my
and do that
Rivian.
thing. Go charge my Rivian.
You have a Rivian?
Yeah, I just got a Rivian.
Oh, well, we need to talk about Rivians.
Yeah.
I would love to get one.
Yeah, it's
Are you
awesome.
sold on
I got
it?
the truck. Oh, super sold. It's very good.
You got
Highly
the truck, not the
recommended.
SUV?
Yeah, get the truck.
Nice.
Man. Get the truck.
Nice.
The truck is so useful when you have the kids and the junk and the bikes and the things and whatever. It just goes in the back of the truck. It's so good. Truck is the only way to live.
Do you have any complaints?
Garbage.
Anything bad?
So far, no complaints. It's only been maybe 3 weeks or something like that. But yeah, so far it's been perfect. I really like it. I like it even more than I thought I would, I have to say. It's really good. No problem.
I'm going to have to write this down because I'm sort of in minivan territory. And now I'm wondering if I should be in Rivian territory.
You could get the SUV.
Doing it all
you
wrong.
can get the Rivian SUV, but don't discount the truck. The truck is so useful. A place that hauls dirty things, so good. So good. House projects. Cool. Yeah.
I like it.
But yeah, I don't know. I would like somebody around
here. You need
a
college kid. Where are you? Are you in Buffalo?
Yeah, I'm sitting right now across the street from Vassar College. And we have hired them.
How many good students want a hourly thing to just do stuff?
I know.
You can
I'm the worst with this stuff. It is we're busy. We're super busy. And it's to take the time. It doesn't work out. Whatever.
Yeah.
We also, we did the babysitting. We had tons of babysitters. I don't know if you guys have been through this, but the babysitting thing is a whole bizarre world with we dropped the kids off at the daycare back in the day. And then you're practically hitting on the people who work there because you're so what are you doing? Do you want to babysit?
What are you
it's
doing
the whole
after?
Thing. We're just grabbing anybody we can out of desperation. Please come watch our children.
You're no, not like that.
No,
I want
not
you to
like
babysit.
that.
Right? Yeah, exactly. This is just a babysitting gig. So I don't know. I think me and my wife are both semi scarred from that, and we're just sick of dealing with the people who would the helpers, because then they disappear and you got to find a new one and the whole thing.
You need a guy. Everybody needs a guy. You just need a guy. I just need a guy.
Our life to not needed, but it would still actually be quite useful. But I don't know. So we're kind of warming up to maybe
you should get a guy. I think you should.
I know.
Aaron, I feel like
someone.
Are we not, for what you need, are we not there already with AI? That you could ask AI to review these top DSLRs and summarize them, rank them. Like all of that can be done. Can't do it.
No, but I don't think so. Part of it again is activation energy, right? Part of it is I know that I would have to go sit down and either learn how to effectively prompt better or just like bang my head against the wall telling it, be like, no, do it better. No, do it better. No, do it differently. And I'm just like, gosh, that feels like I'm doing the whole thing just faster. And what I want is I want somebody to hand the packet of information to me that I can then review and be like, yeah, this is good. I'm going to do this. And then record the thing, you know?
And then they hand the packet that you didn't think to ask for. Like that's the dream for me. It's like, oh, I want you to do the thing that I didn't have time or I didn't think to ask you for, but you did it anyways. And it turns out that's incredibly difficult to find from my experience.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, here's the other thing that's like, it's not easy to do what we do. And I think that it's underrated. It's like people like just hire people to throw in there and they're going to be able to do the stuff you do. And it's really not true because as an entrepreneur, you're a mix of an odd grouping of things. And so this is one of the things where I've had some pretty good success, I think, with hiring developers who are entrepreneurial. Like that's always a thing I look for. Like, do they have side gigs? Do they want side gigs? Like, do they have some experience selling something, anything? Because those are people who are more like the developers here often are working with customers directly. Like go figure out their problem. Like something that certain other types of developers, right, would not do. They'd be very unhappy in that job where some percentage of the time they are talking to the end customer and clicking through bugs or server issues or weird issues, right? They're like, no, I just want to be in this code, writing classes. Don't make me go talk to the other humans, right? So I do think that some of that is like, that's one angle I've found to be successful. Like if you finding people who are entrepreneurial inherently makes them a little more flexible, even though they may not always be as good at any one thing. Like I'm not good at anything, but I'm sort of okay at a bunch of different things, and that's kind of works.
I'm gonna hit you with a yes and classic improv. Yes, I agree. And there are certain things, Ian, that you're really good at, and certain things that you don't need to do. And so for me, for example, like I don't need to spend the 20 hours doing all the research. I do need to be the one on camera, apparently.
Right.
And so like for Jeffrey, maybe he doesn't need to be the one sending the email to, Bob@Disney.com. Oh, that's actually the CEO's name. Lower employee at Disney.
Maybe go down a notch.
Yeah.
Bob at Disney. Hold on, let me write that down.
Yeah.
Bob at Disney. Now I got to contact.
Imagine if you should do that. Imagine if you
try it.
How great would that be?
It's entirely possible. That's the email.
He does. Like, what is the thing in Laracast that Jeffrey probably does need to do is teach, right? And so
I don't need to edit the video.
Right,
but
exactly.
I do.
Right.
Yes, there are things like we are unique and really like interesting and good as entrepreneurs, but like half or more of the job is not the part that people want from us. And so I think that's the part that you can hire out.
Totally. And getting good at that, of the things you should say no to or the things you should offload because they're not bringing that special something that you have as the person with the whole vision in their head, right? Like,
Yeah.
I agree.
But to bring it back to Twitter, like, I think about this sometimes. Do you guys ever think about how it seems like the word of the day is manipulation? Do you ever think about how all of our perception is manipulated by the types of people who use Twitter? If Twitter is your main social network, it's like it takes a specific kind of person to want to sign up for a social network. And then of that group, a specific percentage of people sign up for Twitter. And of that group, a specific percentage of people tweet. And then of that group, tweet regularly enough that you actually see it. And then, so you get to the point where it's like, my idea of what people think probably isn't even remotely close to what the world thinks or the country thinks or any of that stuff. But that's where I get all of my information or my views on tech or programming or politics or news or all of the above.
Yes,
100%. A little bit.
Even making the jump over to YouTube has opened my eyes to another set of developers that I had not previously been exposed to.
Yeah.
And like YouTube is one. I spent a month on Twitch and realized, oh, this is an entirely different community unto itself, and one that I didn't feel very comfortable in, so I eventually left. But it was like, oh yeah, each thing is a bubble and they don't necessarily overlap, but they are certainly they're certainly not representative of the population at large,
of the whole. Yeah. What was wrong with Twitch?
In my opinion, there's a culture of like, man, how do you say it? It's a very like gamer heavy culture that is a little, it's fumble. I didn't like it. Yeah, it's super crass. It's super like insular. It's very, I didn't get any of the jokes, first of all. I didn't get any of the memes. I didn't get any of the references. It's very like edgy and just like almost immature gamer, I think is like the easiest way to say it. And it's not a place, it's not a chat that I would want to hang out in, and so I had a hard time like interacting with the chat that was there, because it was like, guys, can we not make the same jokes over and over and over? Like, can we do better jokes maybe?
Yes, it's probably just like in real life, on average, you're a different age group from most of the people watching, and it's like you can't connect. It doesn't work. All of us have a social. Go ahead.
It felt like a almost like a degenerate gamer hang.
Yeah,
like it's a bunch of young men playing video games who happen to wander into a programming stream, and it's like, that's just not. I don't really connect with that.
Yeah, I wonder if you're gonna get hate for that. I'm curious.
Oh, for sure.
You think so?
Definitely.
Do you guys get hate?
I just hope it doesn't leak out. I hope it doesn't leak out beyond
not too much pure
pod.
hate. Nah.
I would think you'd get nothing but love on social media.
Don't clip this one, Dave.
Yeah, don't clip that part, Dave. But no, I think Twitch kind of wears that on its sleeve a little bit. Like,
it does.
In terms of it's like we're a little edgier and crasser to some degree. I think there's been backlash, my understanding, because like the Amazon overlords have tried to clip the wings of some of that a little bit.
They've tried to clean it up.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's interesting about Twitter too, like that we all get our information there. But then part of me, I'm so torn on this because it's like that's not really much different than in the old days. And you had your local newspaper, and that's kind of where you got your information. A lot of places there was one newspaper. Maybe if you live in the city, there's a couple. But do you subscribe to a couple? You probably only subscribe to one or maybe two. Even the speed, like I was just watching The Godfather with my middle kid the other night.
You're always just watching The Godfather. Yeah.
So
I saw that.
One of the early scenes in The Godfather is they find out
no spoilers.
Don's been shot. Oh, I'm spoiling a 50-year-old movie. Because they walk past a newsstand and it's the evening edition of the news, and they see this news about him being shot. So like that's like, it's whatever. It happened 2 hours ago and it's in the newspaper. So it's like almost real time. Like it's not as real time as Twitter, but it's in the ballpark. And so obviously the big difference is that the newspaper was more one direction, right? Like maybe there's an opinion section where you could go write your thing or whatever, but you don't get everybody's opinion back like we can get on Twitter. So from the one hand, it's actually not that different, but then on the other hand, yes, that you can then also find every rando's opinion on any random thing, and how do you absorb that and deal with that? Is definitely a bit tricky.
I even find Twitter a little bit scary. Like, Ian, I think I saw you write something many years ago where I loved it. And maybe it wasn't your quote, but it was something like, every day on Twitter, somebody is it, and the goal is to not be that person.
Or whatever.
Or something like that. Yes. I love that because that is so true.
Yeah. It's true, yes.
Especially back then, there was just a period where it's like, oh, this guy is getting blasted, And it is like the goal is don't be that person every day. It's a little bit scary.
I do think that's sort of interesting, as it's a lot of what we're talking about here, where like whereas Twitter's formalized into this like, hey, it's a little more business, it's a little more corporate, even if corporate is just us as individuals being more refined and slightly careful about what we're doing. I do feel like that's even like changed a little bit. Like there's not so many of those like every day is the main character because we're blowing you up because of how you use the div weird or something. Like it's a little bit less of that, or maybe I've just cut that scene out a little bit. But
I've muted a lot of those people.
Yeah, but it's like Sam was on the other day on the podcast, and he was sort of the main character about this like the sequel inside React there, right? But he wasn't like upset about it. People weren't even like, they were kind of harassing the idea, but not like him directly so much. Like it wasn't so much like this guy's an idiot. It was more about at least like the idea is an idiot. I think a little bit more.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Here's a counter. Apparently, some guy yesterday tweeted PHP tooling sucks. And
I just read that 5 minutes ago.
We all found it.
Right.
And now he's PHP's main character because Taylor has challenged him to a code battle, which I would pay $50 to watch in prime time.
We are going to make so much money if that happens. We're going to run
Did Taylor actually do that? Did he tweet
did, and the Primogen said he would be the narrator or the color commentary, and
judge.
Theo could be and so like the main character thing still very much happens. It does definitely still happen.
It does happen. Don't you feel like
Sam got it good.
That's a little different though. Even that's a little different. He made a very aggressive statement that people in that community countered. I still think it's different. We used to just find like truly randos for over really stupid stuff.
I brought chili to my neighbors was different. One. Do you remember that woman?
What's wrong with that?
Chili.
What's wrong with
doing that? I don't know, but she just got excoriated. She brought chili to her neighbors, and then everyone said it was like ableist or something. And then there was one that was like, I really enjoy walking in the garden in the morning and drinking my coffee with my husband, and that went like mega viral. And
like, how lucky are you that you can drink this in the morning while other people are dying?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, but again, it's like
that was the heyday of like, let's drag people for milk toast takes.
Yeah, I think that's gone. And and that's a good example of like, I feel like
mostly gone.
Didn't everyone kind of agree like, all right, that's ridiculous, but it didn't feel that way
Apparently
at the
not.
time.
Yeah,
but it's like you would talk to your buddies in real life, and everyone would be like, all right, come on.
Yes,
nobody's offended by this.
And
obviously big things, but not that.
That's where the very online thing comes from. That's where we say like, oh, those people are very online. Like they need to log off because they're too online, and that like. The chili thing was an example of people being too online, for sure.
There's this whole like human evolution thing that I find quite fascinating, where like thousands of years ago, right? Like the only other humans you knew, like you knew your tribe, and then you knew like whatever butted up against your tribe, the other tribe, right? That had their own gods or their own deal. You hated them, they hated you because they were different in whatever way they were different or whatever. And then like whatever, the world grew and information moves faster, and it's like, well, now we kind of know more like about, well, there's all these different people with different ideas and whatever, right? And then but now it's just like you're exposed to everybody and all their ideas and all their, so there is like some natural instinct of like the people just across the line for me, but then there's like lizard brain stuff that's like, well, all these other people are out there and they're all on the other side of my line from my side, whatever that means.
And we're probably hardwired to think us
so
versus
hardwired.
them.
Yeah.
But we have no reason to feel that way anymore, but it's still built in here. Exactly. I've talked about this before, like the whole idea that Laravel is a tribe, sort of. It's really weird. It's a coding framework, but it has become a group and a community that needs to be protected from invaders on Twitter. I'm being hyperbolic, but there's a little bit of truth to it. People you and Laravel. True. Yeah. And then you have people saying like Laravel forever, and there's a chant, there's a battle cry, and we're talking about a coding framework, which is ridiculous. And it's
people
still
are carrying Taylor
itself,
around and like,
for sure. Like
there
is
this group, people want these structures, right? Like at some fundamental level, people want a group
want to belong to
part
something.
of, and they probably want something to be against. I mean, I kind of feel like we're getting a little bit political here, but I kind of feel like part of like post Cold War, like this is a big part of problem in our country, is like people hate each other because we used to have the Russians to hate, and it was so nice and simple. Like it was
we
us
had a
versus
shared.
them.
Yeah,
we all agree. You might be in the South or the North or the East or the West, and you have different parts of your life you treat differently. And I may not agree with you on all kinds of things, but at least you're not Russian. We all are against the Russians, and we're on the same page here, people. And we have that in common. And then since there's no shared enemy of that at least at that scale, right, where it's like existential, us versus them, they are trying to kill us at any moment if we open the door 1 inch, right? At least that was our perception. And we all agreed that we were against them. And now, since we don't have that shared group to all hate, like we gotta do it amongst ourselves.
There's no shared common good that we all subscribe to. Like, it is crazy. We don't agree on anything. That's why it's funny now if anyone was like, Americans think that. It's like, no, Americans don't agree on anything. Like, you can't pick anything that Americans are in agreement on right now.
Right. It's crazy.
Like Western civilization, culture, capitalism, none of it is agreed on right now. Yeah.
And instead of a good war, maybe we just need to like make the Olympics better or make our soccer team better so we can have World Cup and we can all be like, all right, we can pretend that everyone else is bad guys and not actually fight a war. Yeah.
Right. Every 4 years.
Let's just have a good soccer team and then we can pretend to fight. Yeah.
But is it me or people don't even care about the Olympics anymore?
Oh, no.
Nobody cares about the Olympics.
That was a big deal for me when I was young, though. We watched the Olympics every day. Nobody cares anymore.
No.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
They do still care about World Cup, but they don't care about the Olympics. Yep. World Cup's the last bastion of
World Cup is
international sort of competition.
Agreed. And we suck, so it only lasts so long.
Right. Well, that's one of the parts that always bothered me is I always thought America has this huge advantage. I always liked that we didn't allow professionals in the sports because it's like, whatever, like putting a professional basketball team out there is ridiculous if they're from America.
For the Olympics?
Like, no, there has to be all, for the Olympics. So it has to be all college kids. It used to be all college kids. And then they switched it and then it's like, I don't know. That's neither here nor there. But
who cares about the Olympics?
Yeah, it kind of makes it like, even though now other countries do compete pretty solidly with us in these different sports, it definitely, again, I think it's like a Cold War vestige too. It's like lost a lot of juice since there's not like,
I agree,
big baddies on the other side of it.
Yeah, there's no stakes. We're not sticking it. We're not sticking it to an empire. We're just like, we're gonna win probably basketball and swimming somehow. Yeah.
Unless World War III happens. Do you guys think about that at all?
Oh wow.
Let's go in deep, guys. No, I'm kidding. But for real. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did we solve this tweet? Are we resolute in our beliefs?
I think we agreed. I'm overthinking it. Is that right?
I think so. I think you're overthinking it. I also think the last point is you have a different luxury. Like I told you this on Twitter, the scale that Laracast is at, you can just not do it.
That's not fair. Yeah, but I was thinking that's not fair. Like because I would have subscribed to that if Laracast was 1 day old. You know. Yeah, like, isn't that true. A little like, oh, well, that doesn't apply to you, or that doesn't apply to this?
What I mean is you don't have to do it anymore. And I think it's to some level, other people do have to do it more.
Because again, he could be doing, think about all the awesome stuff Jeffrey's going to create for the rest of the good of our industry with more resources. Like, I feel like that's just more things he can do. So I think
But like you said earlier, he's maybe saturated the Twitter dev space, and so he doesn't have to do it as much.
People are coming for Jeffrey too, right? I mean, there's a lot of people out there. They're coming for Laracast, right? He's not like he has no competition.
Continue to do it. Yeah, I think you should continue to retweet stuff like that.
He's not going to go hungry at this point, I think, if he stopped doing it. But
no, some of it I think is a reaction to just there's so much content right now.
There's so much
I find it a little overwhelming. So maybe it is a defense mechanism a little bit where it's like, I don't want to see more content shoved in my face. Like, do you guys ever do the thing where it's like you browse Netflix for 45 minutes, you watch nothing, and then you go to bed? You know, it kind of feels like that with the educational space, especially. It's just non-stop content. Every single person has a course. Everyone has a product. Everyone is selling to you, including me. And it's like, something's got to give at some point, you know?
I don't know if it does. I don't know if it has to give. I really don't.
I've thought this is partially because software has gotten so complicated. Like, it's so hard to do software. Like, a lot of these people want to be building software. but it's so hard to do it. And then it's like, well, I could try the content space. Like that's an easier first step, right? Than like just going right to building software. Yeah. So
me right here, so
and I feel
much
like that's unfortunate
easier
to some degree. Like that, it's not. You can't. It's very hard to get off the ground with software. That there's a million people in every space. You know, I think partially it's people have been sold a disservice, right? With like this whole like heavy JavaScript front end, and well, you need these 38 tools in the stack to build something. Which is what I love about Laravel, right? Is like you can just use Laravel and use nothing else in your stack and make a successful product, or very little, or you can sprinkle in Livewire or whatever, but you don't necessarily have to go the full modern quote unquote of 72 layers to serve HTML. But yeah, I don't know. It does seem like for sure that there's tons of people trying to do it, and there's only so much attention, even with so much more sort of surface area of attention. Ultimately, there's only so much that people have.
Man, guys, when I was getting into it, when I was first learning, I started with .NET, and I was trying to watch video tutorials about .NET, and there was like one place on the internet I could go to, and it was on their website. It was this guy named Joe Stagner, and he would record these little 8-minute videos that were like, I don't know, 800 by 600 resolution, really crappy audio quality, and that was it.
That's awesome.
Like there was nothing else you could do. And you compare it to now when it's like some of the best content in the world is being given away for free. This blows my mind. Like I'm really to guitar. The best guitarists in the world are teaching you for free on YouTube. It blows my mind. Like how nuts that is. And yet you can still have a paid course that does really well too. And that's where it gets very interesting, where it's like often people will buy your course, not because they need the course, but it's almost like, oh, I've gotten a lot from you for free. And now I'm going to pay you back, even though like the number of people I bet who buy courses and never watch them is through the roof. Because half the time it's like, it's
that's me.
Me too. It's either like education addiction. It's like, oh, I want to learn, but I don't have time, but I want to buy this. But then a big component, I think, is just people wanting to support you, which is a crazy, like we talk so much on the internet about how mean-spirited people are. But then there's the flip side, where some of the nicest things that have ever been said to me were not said by my family. They were said by strangers on the internet, which was really cool. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess.
What do you think about this? I don't know if you're up on like Netflix and all that stuff, Jeffrey. I kind of think of Laracast as our like little world version of Netflix, and like Netflix and Disney Plus and these things that are going, like they're kind of coming full circle with like, all right, it's paid content, and now they're really trying to push people into the free or cheaper tiers so that they can run ads, so they can have enough content to run ads at scale. Basically,
that's really interesting.
Cable television. I don't know. Do you ever think about that stuff and how it impacts you? And
I'm always worried about like watering down the again, I hate to say the word, but the brand. I don't want to water down the brand. I think about that with YouTube as well, where it's like, should we do anything on YouTube? And I think the answer is probably yes. But then I wonder if people see like, oh, there's Laracast stuff on YouTube. Why do I need to go over to the website?
Yeah.
And the answer is like, well, there's way more. But are you accomplishing the opposite? You think you're promoting on YouTube? You being me, you think you're promoting on YouTube, but you're actually losing potential visitors to Laracast. I don't know. But other than that, I've thought about doing different tiers. It's been interesting to watch how Disney Plus has been. Like they've even done things where like they release a show and then 4 months later they remove the show entirely. And I think it's something related to this, like they would have to pay licensing fees to keep the show further. And if the show didn't do well enough, like I know like they released a Willow show, like the old Willow movie. They released a TV show based on that. And I think it didn't do very well. And then they just pulled it completely to the point that you can't watch the show at all. Yeah, but that's really strange that there's like content and big shows that are impossible to watch right now. So it's interesting, just as an aside, to see how they are dealing with things, because my understanding is Disney Plus is losing money.
I don't understand how they lose so much money, these services. It's like,
I don't get it either. If you have kids, you sign up
at Disney Plus, and we can find out.
Aren't there like just so many people who pay for Disney Plus? If you just showed us Star Wars and old Disney movies, like you could do nothing else. Don't make any content. Like a lot of people are going to pay for that. I'm going to pay for it. Like
absolutely. I have kids. It's like we pay Disney. I don't even think about it. I'm never like, maybe we should cancel our subscription, right? It's like, no, that is just what we have, and they're still losing crazy amounts of money.
Yeah. I don't know. They should be paying us some of this money. That's what we're saying here.
Yeah.
Sprinkle it around a little. We're not getting any of the 10 billion they lose.
All right, last thing, Aaron.
Tell me.
Do you think about how to promote screencasting.com? Like, do you have a pipeline of like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to release more content, we're going to have a new chapter? Like, is that something you think about?
Yeah, that's something I think about a lot. And something that right now is not moving quickly enough on my side. Yeah, I think about that. I think about that a lot because I think it is evergreen, and I think this could be a good durable asset for me. And so the plan right now is to create a few more videos. There have been some questions and I think some good extra content that I can do, basically just as an excuse to send email and talk about it some more. But then I think ongoing, there are a few like I'm always looking for like veins of content to mine. Like what is the thing I can tap into and just get content over and over and over out of it. One is
it's a cool way
I'm
to
gonna
put it.
do so I do that at Planet Scale too. I'm always like, where can I just find more things to like feed me content ideas? It's very tough, as you know. So one that I think I'm going to do is these screencaster spotlights where I, just reach out to people. Mateus has already recorded one for me where it's like, hey, show me your setup, because I've showed everyone my setup, but I am but one man, right? So show me your setup, show me your camera, your tools that you love, that kind of thing.
I have a setup too, Aaron.
I know. We're saving you.
Send me that email, bro.
I can't reach out to Bob at Disney with my first email, So
gotta get the process down right.
Yeah, I'm going to have some of those so that people can see other setups. And, for example, like Mateus will hopefully get a boost on his YouTube subscribers. So it's hopefully like a mutually beneficial, like I'm promoting you to this audience and this audience has something, together.
Like if I went to screencasting.com and I wasn't ready to pay, is there a way for me to sign up and get anything for free? Or
there are
first couple videos.
Yeah, it's
you go on the newsletter.
Graduated. You can watch several for free, and then you can watch several if you give me your email. And so it's like free taste, and then you can unlock it with your email, and then after that, it's just totally locked. And so that's like the very, very off the street top of funnel. And I'm hoping to continue to build out the free stuff, including screencaster spotlights, including these camera, not even reviews, but like setup guides that we talked about earlier, and put some of that content on YouTube as well, because I think the distribution, you were asking about Laracast, I think the distribution potential of YouTube is just fundamentally unmatched by anything else. I just can't. Like, Twitter is adorable compared to YouTube. Like, YouTube can decide your video is good and it's like, here's 250,000 views. Like, I just can't get that on Twitter. And so that's kind of the long-term vision, is like, I have a pipeline of these screencaster spotlights. I'm doing camera gear kind of stuff, reviews with the help of a future VA that I will at one point have. And then just kind of recording one or two videos as people, or as I discover new tools, techniques, or as people ask questions.
Very cool. Yeah, it's cool.
That's
it seems like just in general, the course is pretty evergreen. Like I have to record courses that it's like it has an expiration date.
I know.
Like we were talking about Laravel from scratch.
Disheartening.
So disheartening. It's like 100 hours worth of work, and it literally has an expiration date of about 18 months from now. Right. And that's just one of the.
And you have to go in and mark them in Laracast as out of date, which has got to be just like, ugh.
Oh yeah, I have an archived button, because it's literally like archive basically on Laracast means hide these 50 videos from search and from Google and from the main website. It's like, oh, I spent 100 hours recording those videos, but you have to at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish I had more content where it's like this can last for 10 years, and you can do that. You can definitely do that.
You can,
but more like tool-based stuff, you really can't. Like,
and people want from you. They want the new stuff from you.
Yeah.
Like, it would be great if you had software fundamentals and stuff like that, but they just want to know, how do I use Folio? How do I use Volt? And it's like, well, I have to record that right now.
Yeah, and it's tough because you have to be super sensitive to newcomers and the friction that might be there. So even though it's like we have Laravel 8 from scratch, but there's Laravel 10, but it's like it's 98% the same. But that 2% where it's like, oh wait, the routes file was over here, but now it's over. It's like that for a newcomer. That's sometimes a deal breaker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we've all felt that way where you're trying to. Go ahead.
They won't even click. It says Laravel 8, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to click.
Yeah,
because it's not like, Laravel 10.
I know, but do I just say Laravel and then they're going to be like, well, what version? Like, I don't know how to deal with it.
I always thought this is like your secret sauce to me is like this whole stuff right here. Like when you go into a Laracast video, you know you are getting something that is going to walk you through it like front to back very carefully and very step by step, where it's like you can just, I don't know, I feel like I never watched a video series really that is so you can really follow it step by step. There's nothing skipped.
You can trust it.
There's
you
nothing.
You
can totally trust it. If you're new to this concept, like you're gonna make mistakes in the video and leave that in, and then talk about the mistake you made, so I can learn from the mistake you made and whatever. So like, I think that stuff's so good. And since software's never done, this is the worst part about software. Software's never done.
Agreed.
Like this, I mean, I've been working on the same product for 20 years, right? And it's like, this product is never done. Like there's always more stuff to do, or the tech or AI shows up and people want AI, right? Like whatever. There's always something where the stuff's not done. And I think the videos need to reflect that, right? Like Laravel's never done.
Yeah, you just work
all
it into
these
the cost
supporting
of doing
tools
business.
are never done.
Yeah,
like all this stuff is evolving, and then so it's got to be up to date. So that's the gig, but that's the value too.
Yeah, very cool.
All right.
Well, it's great. We love having you on, man.
Ian, yeah, this was awesome. Thanks for doing this. Sorry for taking fully 2 hours of your time.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Yeah, we were like, I don't know, maybe it'll just be like half an hour. No, we had it for 2 hours.
I am alone so much every day, so this was really nice.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah,
feel free to come back on if you get lonely. Just ping us.
Yeah,
we had this theory that was like, we'll come on for 30 minutes and then drop off. We'll do a regular show, and that'll be a fun style. It's like, nah, we're just gonna keep going.
We're rolling with it. It's too interesting. We got to stick with it.
Too much fun.
All right.
All right, Ian, tell us, where can we find us?
All right. Thank you, everybody. You can find us on mostlytechnical.com, mostlytechpod on Twitter, and mostlytechnicalpodcast@gmail.com. And then obviously you can reach Jeffrey at Jeffrey_Way on Twitter and laracast.com. So thanks a lot, Jeff, for coming on, and we will see you on Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Thanks.